Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Dhamma session. Today, we will continue our review of the Noble Truths shared by the Buddha with the five ascetics when turning the wheel of Dhamma. In this session, we will focus on the second Noble Truth, the origin of suffering, expressed in Pali as Dukkha Samudaya Ariya Satcha. In our last session, we thoroughly explored the first noble truth of suffering, Dukkha Ariya Satcha. Going through its intricacies can make us feel heavy, fearful, or even doubtful about confronting our own suffering. Some people might take the teachings of the Buddha quite reluctantly, as at first glance they don't seem to invite us to experience peace, pleasure, or happiness. As right at the beginning, the Buddha starts with the noble truth of suffering, highlighting the sorrow, pain, loss, and despair we encounter in our lives. This approach might lead some to perceive the Buddha as a pessimist when he emphasizes the dark and negative aspects of experience in our existence. In reality, the Buddha is neither a pessimist, a fatalist, nor a prophet of doom. Quite the contrary, he invites us to perceive the authentic nature of our reality as it truly is, to reconcile with who we are, and recognize where we stand facing our own inner struggles and challenges. Through his guidance and teachings, he equips us with tools that we can use and apply in our daily lives. He reminds us that we have a choice, an opportunity to decide wisely to either take the road that blindfolds us and leads us to incessant affliction, ignorance, and unsatisfactoriness, or to take the road that could lead us to true happiness, not by hiding or avoiding our miseries, but rather with courage and determination, face them in ways that will eventually overcome them. This assumption and classification of the Buddha and his teachings as pessimistic arise from our inherent desire for pleasure and enjoyment in life. Any teaching that challenges these urges inevitably leads to rejections and reactions. Our minds employ clever tactics to justify our attachments to pleasures, cling to our worldview and opinions, and create a bubble of reality. We build shields and barriers to perceive and understand things in ways aligned with our desires, reinforcing and prioritizing them. However, as we've discussed in previous sessions, the path to the Dhamma requires a fundamentally different approach, encompassing both pure intention and right attitude. The Buddha says that the Dhamma contradicts our natural inclinations, flowing against worldly norms and conventions. It defies them by actively pursuing positive actions. The Buddha described the Dhamma as Patisottagami, a Pali term meaning going or flowing against the current. This implies the struggle to resist negative impulses and make choices aligned with virtuous intentions. It emphasizes the significance of conscious effort in overcoming challenges and difficulties in our daily lives, helping us make decisions that align with ethical principles and foster personal growth. The world and its objects not only influence us, but also condition us. Our human condition, characterized by its tendencies and inclinations, constantly seek pleasurable experiences while avoiding unpleasant ones. The Buddha was very aware of this fundamental aspect of the human experience. In a sutta, He shared his insights and reflections on his relationship with the world. He said, "Before my enlightenment, while I was just a bodhisattva, not yet fully liberated, it occurred to me, what is the gratification in the world? What is the danger in it? What is the escape from it? The pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on the world, this is the gratification in the world. That the world is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change, this is the danger in the world. The removal and abandonment of desire and lust for the world, this is the escape from the world. So long as I did not directly know as they really are, the gratification in the world as gratification, the danger as danger, and the escape from it as escape, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. But when I directly knew as it really is, the gratification in the world as gratification, the danger as danger, and the escape from it as escape, then I claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. In other two short suttas, he describes further insights and wisdom regarding the gratification, the danger, and the escape from the world. He said, I set out seeking the gratification in the world. Whatever gratification there is in the world, that I found. I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the gratification in the world extends. I set out seeking the danger in the world. Whatever danger there is in the world, that I found. I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the danger in the world extends. I set out seeking the escape from the world. Whatever escape there is from the world, that I found. I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the escape from the world extends. So long as I did not directly know as they really are the gratification, danger, and escape in the world as gratification, danger, and escape, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. But when I directly knew as it really is the gratification, danger, and escape in the world as gratification, danger, and escape, then I claimed to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. The knowledge and vision arose in me. Unshakable is my liberation of heart. This is my last birth. Now there is no more renewed existence. He continued, if there were no gratification in the world, beings will not become enamored of it or in love with it. But because there is gratification in the world, beings become enamored of it. If there were no danger in the world, beings will not become disenchanted with it. But because there is danger in the world, beings become disenchanted with it. If there were no escape from the world, beings will not escape from the world. But because there is an escape from the world, beings escape from it. So long, bhikkhus, as beings have not directly known as they really are the gratification in the world as gratification, the danger as danger, and the escape from it as escape, they have not escaped from this world. They have not become detached from it, released from it, nor do they dwell with a mind rid of barriers. But when beings have directly known as it really is the gratification in the world as gratification, the danger as danger, and the escape from it as escape, then they have escaped from this world. They have become detached from it, released from it, and they dwell with a mind rid of barriers. The Buddha says that in order to awaken from the dream of illusions, we have to see things as they really are. In Pali, Yata Bhutta Jnana Dassana, which is the knowledge and vision according to reality, knowing and seeing things as they really are. In the previous suttas I just mentioned, we can appreciate how the Buddha urges us to see the true nature of our existence and our relationship with the world from different angles and perspectives. The first one is in relation to enjoyment and satisfaction or gratification. In Pali, asada. The second angle is with regard to the danger or unsatisfactoriness, adinava. And the third is with regard to the release or escape, nissarana. The Buddha says that the world captivates us with its allure, offering us pleasures and temptations that draw us into the material world of objects and personal achievements. These pursuits aim to build our reputation and gain respect in society. This is what the Buddha describes as asada, the gratification in the world. However, these enticements the world offers can lead to attachment and a fixation on the objects of enjoyment and the pleasure they bring. While some experiences can contribute to spiritual development, fostering qualities that are wholesome and morally correct, such as a pure family life based on honesty, commitment and respect, and loyalty in friendships, these experiences alone may not provide lasting satisfaction. To gain a comprehensive understanding of our reality, we must consider and look at our existence from different perspectives. One approach is to view the pleasurable experiences from the angle of adinava, the danger and drawbacks they bring, by recognizing their inherent unsatisfactoriness due to their impermanence and nature to change. What was once united will break apart. What was young will grow old, and what we gain will eventually be lost. As these experiences fade, the enjoyment, pleasure, and satisfaction they once brought can transform into discomfort, pain, and dissatisfaction. The third perspective the Buddha suggests is to consider our reality through nissarana, the release or escape. To break free from suffering, we must let go of our desires and grasp for the objects of enjoyment and delight, with the intention of seeking an escape from these dangers and traps. We can transcend the limitations of the material world and attain a deeper understanding of our true nature. If we take a moment to reflect, we can make the effort to recognize these three different angles the Buddha suggests for us to consider in the ways we see the world, in the ways that we experience it. We can identify in relation to any object or any person or anything that we connect in this world. Whenever there is enjoyment, satisfaction, pleasure, or gratification, asada, we can simply recognize the presence of this experience within us. And that doesn't need to bring any negative thoughts or any fear. We don't need to reject it. We just need to experience it, to recognize it, to explore ourselves, to see the reality as it is already manifesting within us. So as soon as we recognize and we can relate with the experience of asada, we can make notes. That is the outcome. That is the feeling or experience or emotion that the object gives us of pleasure, satisfaction, enjoyment, or gratification. Now, once we recognize this experience in relation to this object, we can take another step further. And we can make the effort to observe the same object, but now from a different angle, from the angle of adinava. Can we find any danger, any problem, disadvantage, drawback, unsatisfactoriness, inadequacy, or a bad consequence relating to this object that at first brought enjoyment, satisfaction, pleasure, or gratification? Is not to think negatively of the object. Is not necessarily rejecting or denying the experience or the favorable experience of asada. Is simply bringing a different perspective. Can we see something more than just the favorable or pleasurable experience? So this can give us a different angle, just a different perspective, not to judge the object or the experience, but just to bring a different angle to see, to truly see the object, to truly see our relationship with the object, to see and recognize if there is something else that is revealed in this connection, in this relationship. And if we do see the danger, if we see the problem, a certain disadvantage, drawback, any inadequacy, then can we apply the third angle of Nisarana? Are we willing to release, to come out, to find a way out, to let go of that which was pleasurable, enticing, that brought gratification? And if yes, if we can do it, then just in a moment, in this simple reflection, we can exercise the letting go. We can exercise the escape and release from this dependence or grasping or attachment to the object and the favorable outcome it brought to us. This is a simple reflection that we can take by stopping, by taking a moment and observe our relationships with so many objects that we encounter every day. One can imagine in one day, how many objects do we contact? How many objects do we interact with? There could be many. Maybe one cannot even recount how many objects one has contacted in one day. So in our practice, what we can do is just take a moment and observe this connection, this relationship, and particularly the outcome, what the object produces within us. And in this simple observation, perhaps you may find some objects, despite seeing the gratification, the favorable experience, even you may be able to see the danger, but perhaps you're not willing to escape. You are not willing to release or to come out from that. That's okay. It means that it is a process that takes time, that eventually practicing, walking on this path, following the teachings, it leads us towards the escape from any object that we encounter. When I say it is okay, it's not to put unnecessary pressure or to despair because one is not willing or able to let go, or one does not have the condition, the insight or wisdom at that moment to let go or to escape from that experience or that attachment. But it's also not to let it sit and rot and spread within us. It's just a simple observation and recognition. And in all this process, what plays a very important role is our honesty, our sincerity with ourselves. You don't need to lie or to hide the way you feel in relation to objects in the world, in your connections, but you can make notes. What are the objects? What are the things that you still feel you cannot escape, you cannot release, you cannot let go? And this requires to stop for a moment and bring this simple intention to reflect, to make the effort to observe and recognize. Just a simple exercise. It gives us a perspective of how blind one can be throughout the day without checking oneself, without stopping and observing oneself, just looking within. Just a simple encouragement that the Buddha offers to all of us to reflect, to practice, and certainly to realize. The gratification from worldly objects can offer only temporary happiness or pleasures. This is a conditioned happiness because it is always dependent on the object of pleasure. The Buddha guides us to seek and find the happiness and joy that is unconditioned, that is independent from worldly objects and its pleasures. That is Nibbana, the cessation of suffering. When we pursue happiness in the world with its objects, we realize that it only provides temporary gratification. It fails to deliver a profound, enduring, and comprehensive sense of satisfaction. The world, objects, and the gratification they provide are not entirely reliable. They undergo change, dissolve, disappoint us, and ultimately lead to more attachment and affliction. In essence, they are imperfect, inadequate, and unsatisfactory. Although they offer pleasure at first, they ultimately leave us with a bitter taste within. Despite knowing and frequently experiencing these drawbacks and limitations, strong impulses continue to arise within us, prompting us to seek and plunge into these enjoyments and pleasures over and over as long as we are alive, with the pretense that this is the only existence we have. If I do not get this or that object now, this or that experience, when will I? In this way, one lives continuously seeking enjoyment and delight in the world, shifting from one object to another, from one experience to another, from one pleasure to another, from one disappointment to another. In reality, without knowing it, what one is actually doing is blindly jumping from one form of dukkha to another. To dispel this illusion and wrong view, the Buddha shares that this is not the sole existence we have, that to fully understand dukkha, we must consider the factor of rebirth. He said that we do not live once, but repeatedly, in a succession of rebirths that has been ongoing for a long time, without a discoverable beginning. This is what we call samsara, the wheel of rebirths. The word samsara literally means perpetual wandering. In our existence, one keeps wandering life after life, here and there, taking birth in one plane of existence or another according to our actions, karma. Samsara denotes the sea of life that is perpetually restless and in a state of continuous motion. It symbolizes the cyclical nature of birth, growth, aging, sickness, and death. It refers to the unbroken chain of the fivefold khandha aggregates, which undergo constant transformation from moment to moment, progressing through inconceivable periods of time. A single lifetime represents only a small transient fraction of this vast cycle. Therefore, to fully understand the first noble truth of universal suffering, it is essential to focus one's attention on samsara, the cycle of rebirths, rather than only paying attention on one single lifetime. In a series of suttas, the Buddha shares that in samsara we have experienced the demise of our loved ones, our parents, brothers, sisters, children, and friends countless times. We have experienced sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair. We have been separated from pleasure and united with pain. Wandering on in samsara, one will have left behind a stack of bones, a heap of bones, a pile of bones, as large and as high as a mountain. We have wept and lamented, shedding more tears than the water contained within the four great oceans. Throughout our existence, we are likely to find the same forms of suffering repeatedly in various planes of existence. The heavenly realms, the lower realms, the human realm, and the animal realm. He said that in samsara, we have experienced the dukkha of these planes, and that ultimately all planes of existence eventually come to an end, and upon the termination of life there, we will be reborn in a different plane of existence. If we reflect carefully on the Buddha's wisdom and insight into our existence and the profound nature of the noble truth of dukkha, it becomes evident that true happiness cannot be achieved within the conditioned realm of birth and death, where we seek that which is conditioned and subject to suffering. The Buddha teaches us that all conditioned things are transient and subject to change, that in order to attain true, genuine happiness, it is imperative to detach ourselves from all conditioned aspects subject to aging, decay, and death. This genuine and noble aspiration to attain freedom from all conditioned phenomena, to be free from suffering, naturally leads us to seek and discover the causes that engender the nature of suffering. This is precisely where the second noble truth comes into play. In Pali, it is expressed as Dukkha Samudaya Ariya Satcha, the noble truth of the origin of suffering. In his teachings, the Buddha emphasizes the importance of addressing the root causes of problems in order to achieve lasting solutions. In the context of dukkha, this entails confronting and treating the underlying nature of suffering, its root causes, rather than merely addressing its superficial symptoms. Failing to address them will not cure the disease. Instead, it will conceal it, allowing it to spread, causing more harm than benefits. This will ultimately compromise our well-being. Taking palliative treatments that tackle the superficial symptoms will only alleviate temporarily the discomforts and drawbacks of the nature of dukkha, but they will not eradicate the disease. This passive approach only prolongs the agony without truly addressing the root causes of the problem. Adopting such a mindset implies that we have already resigned or given up hope for a cure, blindly accepting that suffering is a natural aspect of life and that there is nothing one can truly do to eradicate it. This belief stems from the notion that dukkha is imposed upon us by a higher power or an invisible universal force that brings oppression, making us feel guilty and unworthy of true happiness. Fortunately, the Buddha illuminates the darkness through a profoundly distinct approach. He confronted the issue of suffering by directly addressing its fundamental causes rather than merely addressing its symptoms. There is a metaphor that illustrates the Buddha as a lion and worldly beings who are ensnared in thoughts and pursue them as a dog. The metaphor suggests that if a stick is thrown at a dog, it will chase the stick, just as worldly beings attempt to only treat the superficial aspects of the nature of dukkha. However, if a stick is thrown at the lion, instead of chasing the stick, the lion will go after the individual who threw it. This is the Buddha, whose approach is to address dukkha by tackling its root cause. As we reviewed in the session on setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma, the Buddha shared in detail with the 5 ascetics the 4 noble truths and pointed out what the cause of suffering is. He said, "This, bhikkhus, is the second noble truth of the origin of suffering. It is this craving, tanha, that leads to renewal of existence, that is accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. That is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for annihilation." The term in Pali, tanha, literally means thirst. It can also be understood as craving. This is the chief root of suffering and responsible for the ever-continuing cycle of rebirths, samsara. This is different from desire. Here, the word desire can have different meanings or inclinations. For instance, we find that there are wholesome desires, more like a good wish or wholesome intent to move towards something one doesn't have at the moment. For example, there could be a desire, wish, or intention for liberation, for purification of heart, for the development and cultivation of wholesome and skillful spiritual qualities, such as empathy, kindness, sincerity, gratitude, compassion, clarity, and wisdom. These desires, wishes, or intentions fall under the category of being wholesome because they spring from wholesome states and they lead to wholesome qualities and outcomes for the benefit of oneself, for the benefit of others, and the benefit of both oneself and others. We can also find that there are unwholesome desires, wishes, or intentions. These fall under the denomination of tanha, craving. These are desires that are rooted in unwholesome states, and consequently, they lead to more unwholesome states, ending in unwholesome qualities and outcomes. They are rooted in ignorance and delusion. They are narrow and self-centered, fostering selfishness and personal gain and satisfaction. They lead to unwholesome and unskillful qualities such as envy, jealousy, stinginess, arrogance, cruelty, deceit, hatred, and ignorance. These desires or wishes should be avoided because they lead to more dukkha. They don't bring benefits to oneself, to others, or both. In the definition that the Buddha gave on the origin of suffering, he mentioned that there are three types or forms of craving: craving for sensual pleasures or sensual craving. In Pali, kamma tanha. Sensual pleasures are associated with the objects that the six sense bases take. The first five senses refer to the five physical faculties. The sixth is in relation to the mind. The six sense bases are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. Then we have the objects they take, which are the forms, sounds, odors, tastes, tangibles or bodily impressions, and mental impressions, respectively. Therefore, corresponding to the six sense objects, there are six kinds of craving: craving for visible objects, for sounds, for odors, for tastes, for bodily impressions, and for mental impressions. The craving for existence, known as bhava tanha, is the need and grasping for life, the desire for continued survival, and the strong desire to persist in existence and take on various forms. This craving is further intensified when combined with the belief in a permanent entity that continues to exist for eternity. Lastly, we find the third form of craving, known as vibhava tanha, which in contrast to the previous one is the craving for annihilation or non-existence. This craving arises when the unbearable pain of life manifests in self-destructive behaviors, prompting a wish to escape this pain through self-annihilation. If we recall that in our previous session we explored the nature of dukkha at length, its different types, forms, and most importantly, how we experience suffering in our lives. In our reflection, we made the effort to identify and relate to it, to carefully observe the different ways and forms that it manifests in our lives. As we look closely and delve deeply into this experience, we can also see behind the experience of suffering the causes that give rise to it, to sense the presence of craving within us that leads to the arising of dukkha. In this context, craving is identified as the underlying cause of all unhappiness and unsatisfactoriness we undergo in life. Our experience of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, fear, worry, and disappointment can all be traced back to the desire for personal gratification. In the texts, we find that the Buddha mentioned that from craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief. For such a person, how can there be fear? And we can bring this when we experience the separation from loved ones or desirable material objects, when our hopes are unfulfilled, or when we are unable to acquire what we wish for, we suffer. This is how the craving that is present, although unnoticed, behind these struggles leads to sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Craving also gives rise to fear, as we fear losing the things we've acquired, fearing their distraction, rejection by those we love, or separation from them by different conditions or circumstances. When craving arises within us, it is accompanied by a feeling of dissatisfaction. There is no peace or harmony within. Quite the opposite. There is tension and a feeling of struggle that causes pain, unhappiness, and unsatisfactoriness. When we lack something, we feel unfulfilled. Then we crave to move from this undesirable state of lacking towards the state of accomplishment and fulfillment. This can be considered as the dukkha from not having what one desires, the suffering of lack. The transition of states from lacking and needing something until we acquire it requires effort, energy, and drive to accomplish it. All this investment of striving and seeking what we lack also brings about dukkha. And once we possess the object and fulfill the need, we must take care of it. We must protect it and ensure it doesn't break up, get stolen, or disappear. The struggle of protection is another form of dukkha. Even though enjoyment, pleasure, and delight can be found in this process, it is only temporary and conditioned. It doesn't last long, and it is bound to the characteristics of existence. They are impermanent and subject to change. The very pleasure, gratification, delight, and enjoyment are dependent on the objects of desire. What this does is strengthen the levels of craving within, intensifying the inner struggle as one seeks more pleasure, fame, wealth, health, renown, or power in new objects in the pursuit to satiate the endless needs one has. As we saw in the definition of tanha, craving not only is the chief root of suffering, but also the factor responsible for the ever-continuing cycle of rebirths, serving as the driving force for samsara. When the Buddha defines the second noble truth of the origin of suffering, he says that it is this craving that leads to renewal of existence. In Pali, punnavabhika. He continues, craving is accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. In our existence, through the six sense bases, we crave sensual pleasures so long as the body is alive. The physical structure serves the sense bases, and therefore the presence of craving is inevitable. Craving uses the six sense bases and the body to find delight here and there. This is why it is so crucial for us to develop the ability to discern and manage craving effectively, to detect it and work with it when it arises in us, rather than succumbing to it. We might believe that craving ceases when the body passes away, as it doesn't serve the sense bases anymore. But this is not true. Even though the body decays and eventually dies, craving persists. And when the link between the mind and the body is severed at death, craving propels the current of consciousness onto a new body, on a certain plane of existence. It passes to a new body in the process of rebirth. A new embryo arises at the time of conception, and this is how the drive for existence continues in a new form with a new body as its support. Now craving finds new opportunities to be supported and sustained in a new form of life. In the night of his awakening, the Buddha called craving the house builder, the architect who constructs the entire structure of samsara, encompassing all forms of existence. Craving continues to spin the wheel of rebirth, perpetuating the endless wandering in a cyclical manner until one can finally abandon it. Craving leads to new existence, which in turn provides the foundation for craving. This is how the round of becoming keeps on turning over and over, resulting in a cycle of repeated rebirths where dukkha continues to afflict sentient beings in the entire cycle of existence. This concludes the exposition on the second noble truth, dukkha samudaya ariya satcha, the origin of suffering, shared by the Buddha for us to reflect, for us to consider, for us to abandon. I would like to conclude our session for today and kindly invite all to pay homage to the Triple Gem, to pay homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One, who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to pay homage to the Dhamma, the teachings which he well expounded, and paying homage to the Sangha, community of monastics that continue to practice well and share the Dhamma with the world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all have a wonderful day. We'll connect again in our next session.